Hey, my name is Sam Spencer. I'm delighted to welcome you to this session on buy, refurb, refinance, or the BRR strategy in property investment. I am so excited to show you today how I went from the grind of working over 80-hour weeks as a physiotherapist, rubbing legs for a living, that's not a joke by the way, to venturing into entrepreneurship. How I've managed to grow multiple successful businesses, and I've done way over 100 property deals entirely on my own, most of them in the strategy we're going to be talking about today, BRR. Now, we're going to delve into a series of sections. Each of them have been structured to cover key aspects of the BRR process, from understanding the fundamentals of the strategy itself, what it actually is, how we're going to finance them, how we do our market research, then moving on to really mastering the art of renovation, maximizing the property value. So we're going to leave no stone unturned. What you're going to need for today's session is a pen, a notepad, an iPad, a coffee. Get ready. You're going to be taking loads of notes. What is a BRR? We'll need to get our head around what a BRR is so we can see how you're able to capitalize on this strategy or tactic. Now, essentially, you might have heard of it. You might even be aware of what it actually is, or at least a version of it. If you've ever watched an episode of Homes Under the Hammer before, or you're aware of a common property model known as flipping, whereby you take a typically rundown property and you refurb it, that is after what every episode of Homes Under the Hammer centers around, right? Now, essentially, those 2 points make up the first 2 parts of the BRR. So that's the B and the R of BRR. So more specifically, the buy and the refurbish. Now, unlike what they show you on TV, when the estate agent comes out, they value the property as a suggested sale. How much are you going to sell it for? Say, for example, if you were flipping it, when you put the property back on the market, you make profit, for example. Instead, in this instance of a BRR, we're going to refinance or remortgage the property. Now, ideally, we're going to do it at that higher value because we've done a fantastic renovation, and then we're going to hold, or we're going to keep that property within our portfolio for the long term. So we've got the last R of the BRR, which is refinance. Effectively, you're keeping the property. You're remortgaging it rather than selling it. And a little side note here, you may have heard of something called equity release before. Essentially, that's what you're doing at this stage. There are potential bigger BRR deals that you could do. We're not going to talk about it today, but commercial, larger HMO conversions where you might pull 100% of your money out and some, meaning you make profit from that as well. However, ones I'm going to show you today, these are genuine deals that we've completed on. And it's a more common model in single lets whereby you're going to leave a small portion of your capital in the deal. It doesn't mean on every deal you're going to pull all your money out. All right, it's kind of unrealistic to think you're going to do it on every deal, but ideally we're going to pull some money out to be able to put into the next property, the next venture. We call that recycling your cash. And ultimately that allows you to keep going and building more and more. So when you think about investing in property at its core, it involves purchasing the property, putting in a tenant, and collecting the rent. That's the classic buy-to-let or BTL approach. That works for some. Others seek a bit more sophistication in their investment journey, maybe a little bit more risk for a little bit more return. And this is where that BRR, that buy, refurbish, refinance tactic really comes into play. The essence of BRR is that you're identifying properties with potential for value addition. Now, we're going to be focusing on cosmetic renovation today, but it doesn't need to be limited to that. It could be developing a property that has a donor house type model, could be extending a property, could be splitting off land and selling it or developing, or it could be extending a short lease in a leasehold property. But when we couple this tactic with buy to let, as we'll predominantly focus on in this video, it becomes a very powerful, a very potent tool for you. As I said, my favorite strategy that's going to enable you to build a sizable portfolio with a relatively modest investment. Adding value doesn't always require extensive renovation. Even minor improvements, it could be new kitchen, new bathroom, carpets, windows, liquor paint, that could do the trick to increase the value of a property. It doesn't have to be crazy big renovations. So let's see how this might work in reality, and write this down, work this with me. Let's say we're purchasing a property let's say we're going to get it below market value. So as an example, let's say the property is listed for £80,000. We use our negotiation skills to get it down to 65,000. We're then going to spend around £10,000 on refurbishment. So that could be a new kitchen, new bathroom, lick of paint, carpets, etc. We've then done our due diligence or our analysis, which we're going to come on to later. This is going to be game changing for you to really identify the end value of the property. Now, in this instance, we believe the property value could rise to £100,000 based on our research. So then what we're going to do after the refurb is we're going to refinance it onto a mortgage product. Typically, we're going to use 75% loan to value. And then in this instance, you can then potentially retrieve most, if not all, of your invested capital back out, and you have a free house, like magic, like witchcraft. I'm going to break this down for you today so you can do this too. Now, we mentioned analysis and valuing properties here. We're going to deep dive into that. But understanding property valuation is crucial. Stress testing, a calculation used by mortgage providers, influences really the upper limit of property values that this BRR strategy will realistically work with. Now, don't get me wrong, you can do BRR on any value property, but with buy-to-lets, typically, you want it to be around the £150,000 mark. So that means you're targeting properties 100,000 up to 150,000. It's going to be more feasible. In essence, the BRR model offers flexibility, and you have so much power in your hands once you understand this stuff. So as you delve into this technique more and more, you're going to discover the potential of this to change your investment journey forever. The pros and cons. Now, like any strategy, there's pros and cons. Let's break these down for you. Unfortunately, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. So first, let's go through the pros, the positives. Number one, you get a shiny new buy-to-let property. It's not just about buying, it's about upgrading. You acquire the property, you give it a facelift, and then you seamlessly integrate that into your portfolio. So that upgraded condition can be a magnet to great tenants, giving you great rental income. You might even break the rental ceiling of the area, which we've done many, many times. Number two, you've got the ability to refinance to unlock capital. Now, post-refurb, you've got that golden opportunity to refinance, which we've touched on. That's not just a financial move, but it's a strategic one as well. So by unlocking some of that initial investment you've put in, you're essentially creating a financial cycle. So you free up capital, then you can reinvest it in new opportunities, new properties, new BRRs, really setting the stage for much more rapid portfolio growth. Now, number three, and a really important thing that you want to write down, is having multiple exit strategies. Now, if you don't rent it out and you have it at a great standard in a good area, you could always sell the property. The choice is yours. Even if you opt to sell it, that increased property value ensures that you're likely going to make a decent profit on it. So when we're looking at property, it's really important that you want to ensure we've got at least two exit options that mitigates our risk. The next pro is a higher return on capital employed, or ROCE, the only four letters you need to know in property. But through refinancing, through capital recycling, you're maximizing that return on capital employed because less of your money's tied up. So it offers a much more efficient and much more profitable investment strategy. And this is designed to be repeatable. BRR is not just a one-hit wonder. You can use the same initial pool of money repeatedly. It's like having a magic wand. You're Harry Potter. Each deal you do that's successful, you pull back some of your investment. You can put it into new BRRs. It's such an amazing strategy for lasting growth and success. The next thing is you can use bridging finance, quicker acquisitions, potentially better negotiations, potentially better deals. Now, bridging finance can be a powerful weapon in your armory. It's a very powerful weapon in the armory of many BRR investors, but it needs to be used correctly. We're going to be talking about that later on. A big thing for me is forced equity gain. Unlike most investors, they allow time to do its thing. They gain equity through time, through inflation. Now we have full control over this. That's something you most definitely do not have in other investment like stocks and crypto, for example. You cannot force the appreciation of them asset classes. Now the cons. Sad face. There are some cons like anything. Let's talk about the challenges of BRR. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and skipping around. There are some hurdles to navigate. Now it can be cash flow intensive, right? That's the upfront reality. If we're buying with cash plus those initial refurb costs, it can be substantial. Budgeting for renovations and improvements is really important to avoid any financial surprises down the line. You're also going to have a cash flow lag. This is number 2. It is a bit of a waiting game. Now, until that property is rented, and most people miss this, you've got costs like council tax, loan interest, and insurance that needs to be covered. Somebody's got to pay that. You've got to ensure sufficient cash flow during them waiting periods. It's an absolute must. The next thing is potential time delays. Patience is definitely a virtue. It's one of them key attributes you need to develop as a property investor in general. But BRR is not a sprint, unfortunately, it's a marathon. You know, by the time you've purchased the property, let's say it's been 3 months in the legal process. Let's assume you've then got a 2 to 3 month period of renovation, if it goes to plan, and then refinance. You're talking 9 months-ish, potentially longer. So patience and meticulous planning in this stage are your allies. The next thing, and one that nobody really talks about, is the emotional stress. This is that kind of intangible, unseen cost. Potential sleepless nights. You might be able to see it in my face. The sleepless nights. BRR deals demand more effort. They demand more time compared to maybe normal set it and forget it buy-to-let investments. You've got to do really detailed research, due diligence. They're just non-negotiables for a successful outcome. It's an investment. It's not a shortcut. Right? And it can be very time consuming, especially if you're managing or maybe even overseeing the refurb and the trades team yourself. The next thing is property selection challenges, the hunt for diamonds in the rough. You know, you've got to find suitable properties. Ideally, you want to get a discount. You want to obtain them below market value. You need them in need of repair. All these things coupled can be a challenge. So the goal is to increase that property value significantly through strategic renovation. The next con is unforeseen property issues. You want to expect the unexpected. Unexpected issues during refurbs particularly can arise. There may literally be skeletons behind the kitchen. I've got so many stories I could tell you, which I won't go into now, but maybe you find damp that you didn't account for. You've got to allow for contingencies during that refurb phase. Ensure you're prepared for the unpredictable, the unexpected, because it will probably arise. Finally, interest rates and valuation risks. The market is a bit of a dance. You've got to keep your eye on those interest rates. They could change over the 6 months of your project. Property prices may fluctuate. We know the market ebbs and flows, but there's never been a 10-year period in history where property's not gone up in value. But in the micro market over months, there might be fluctuations. It could affect your profit, it could affect your cash flow, it could affect the valuation. So you've got to stay vigilant, you've got to stay adaptable. Now remember, this is not get rich quick. It's not a get rich quick scheme. There's no such thing in my opinion. If you're sitting here looking for instant gratification without the work, I'm sorry, but you're in the wrong place. Now I know there'll be gurus out there that will tell you it's possible. Work an hour a month, you'll be financially free. Okay. I'm just telling you it's rubbish. I'm just being genuine with you. It's hard work, but it is simple if you follow the steps. If you follow the steps, I guarantee you're going to get results. We want to be looking at things totally different to everybody else to see the opportunities that others miss. So there you have it, the intricate dance, I wish I'd never done that, of the BRR. It's a tactic with incredible potential. But like any investment, it requires strategy, right? Planning, resilience, emotional resilience. And by the way, if you're finding this useful so far, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. We're going to be going on to the actual process. Property acquisition. In this section, we're going to delve into the intricate art of acquiring properties, i.e. we're sourcing a property. And again, I want to emphasize the importance of getting this right from the outset, because finding the property or sourcing it, as we call it in the industry, is the foundational step. It sets the tone for the profitability of your investment. You make money when you buy. You may have heard that before. So it could be astute property decisions, negotiation, adding value to existing properties. The choices that you make during that initial acquisition process are going to reverberate throughout the entire investment. So getting it right is so important. It's not a suggestion for you, it's crucial. So write this down, because it is going to dictate the potential for your returns. It's going to shape the trajectory of not only this one investment, but your entire portfolio. Now, there are two fundamental approaches to generating properties that we want to achieve. Number one is buying strategically below market value. And number two is adding value to the property. So how do we find these properties? Well, in any business, any property business, lead generation is going to play a pivotal role in securing new business. And in our world, securing new property deals. Now, if you know me, you know that I love online marketing, particularly through platforms like Facebook. Facebook ads, I love them. Maybe a little bit too much. It just proves time and time again to be a hugely valuable avenue for us on both the vendor, i.e. the house seller, and the investor side. Getting direct to vendor off market deals is really important to us, and that's typically where your best deals are found for obvious reasons. There's also multiple other direct to vendor techniques you could use. Could be cold calling, direct mail, leaflets, networking, where you can generate leads. The reality is everything works, whether it be leaflets or Facebook ads. We just tend to find that online marketing, it's just more modern. It's a modern way of doing things. Now, 99% of people get their deals through estate agents. There's nothing wrong with that, but we want to be different. We want to be that 1%. And we need to be willing to do the things the other 99% are not, to have the results that the 99% of people don't have. Now, obviously, you don't want to be the only person doing it, right? But you want to be part of that spearhead, part of that first mover advantage. So if you want to be part of that 1%, you've got to put the work in. You've got to stand out from the crowd and do something different. Now, another reason I love online advertising is it can be so targeted. You can narrow down your geographical location to a row of streets. You could even target relationship status. If somebody went from married to single, you can target that on Facebook, which is great, but kind of scary at the same time, right? And how I look at this, if you imagine this, let's say you're in Leeds city centre, and everybody that walks past you, you say, excuse me, do you want to sell your house? Excuse me, do you want to sell your house? Excuse me, do you want to sell your house? You've got no idea whether they do or not. You don't even know if they've got a house to sell. That's typical marketing. That's what your leaflets, your letters, going through people's post boxes are essentially doing. Now imagine you're using Facebook ads. Now the people that have a house, maybe they're going through divorce, maybe they're looking to downsize, maybe they're an accidental landlord. Imagine they're walking towards you, but now they're highlighted in yellow. Now hopefully my analogy makes sense, but now you can approach these people who actually have a house and actually need your help. Now the added part of this analogy is you're not approaching them, they're approaching you. They're approaching you to see how you can help them. It is so powerful. It is game changing. Now, some of you might be watching this, having used Facebook ads before, and you may know of a downside or perceived downside of Facebook ads called special ad categories. So Facebook's restricted the things you can target. Now, they're talking of removing that, by the way. But a few years back, we were targeting investors, and we could target people who earn a certain amount of money. Let's say we were targeting people who earn £1 million a year. Now they restricted that. But what a lot of people don't know is that Facebook still does it, but it's in the background. You don't see it anymore. So with an ad, it looks at the people that are engaging with your ad. It looks at their demographics, their age, their relationship status, their job, their earnings. And then what it does is it takes that ad and it shows it to more people like them that represent them. And that happens again and again and again. So your targeting just gets better and better and better over time. How cool is that, by the way? It literally blows my mind that we can be so specific. It is so powerful. When I found this out, literally I was so excited. We were speaking to people who we would have never met in real life before. Within 30 days, we were speaking to millionaires who actually wanted our help to help them grow a portfolio. Absolutely insane. And when do people typically use Facebook? Well, all the time, right? In the morning, when they're skiving at work on the toilet, at night, when they're in the bath. I guarantee nobody's taking your leaflet to the toilet with them or in the bath with them for that matter. Now, there are lots of different ways of finding great deals. The obvious one that most people think about is speaking to estate agents. They've got lots of properties for sale. It's very true. Estate agents control 90% of the market. So a huge, huge share, and it shouldn't be ignored. Now, just to break this down further for you, of that 90%, 85% of it is the kind of traditional estate agent, the high street guys and girls. About 5% are the online agents. Now, why would you ignore the majority of the market? Don't. Use it. Use the on-market to your advantage. Now, unfortunately, some estate agents don't really like property investors. They don't hold us in the best light, mainly because a lot of investors don't really know what they're doing. That's what we're trying to change, right? They go and say things like, can I have all your BMV deals? Have you got some motivated sellers? I want to do some purchase lease options. No. Don't use them training room terms. Do yourself a favor, drop the training room terms. Remember, human to human interaction. Just have a conversation with people and be yourself. Now, everybody wants off-market deals, right? And it's great, but it comes at a cost. I'd be doing both on and off-market deals. Then yeah, obviously there's going to be more competition on the market because it's public. You're competing with what we call typical retail buyers, i.e. owner-occupiers. Now, another avenue is often overlooked is collaboration with letting agents. Specifically let-only agents, i.e. ones that don't do sales as well. Now, drawing from personal experience, property investors can strategically spread their properties across different letting agents. But remember, they also frequently have landlords who want to sell. So your strategic use of letting agents, building them relationships, particularly the let-only agents, will offer you a unique opportunity by recognizing that letting agents often encounter landlords interested in selling or even growing their portfolio. If you build that relationship, you could be a solutions provider to help that individual to capitalize on these relationships and generate an income from it. Now, what is every letting agent's worst fear? Losing significant portfolios or significant number of properties. Let's imagine, picture this, you've got Dave. Dave is a seasoned landlord, he's got 15 properties. Dave's contemplating the sale of his entire portfolio. He's had enough, he wants out. Now he speaks with a local estate agent around the corner. They say to Dave, listen Dave, I reckon we can get more than you want for these properties. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. He doesn't talk to his letting agent because they don't provide sales. So he speaks to somebody else. Now remember, all Dave's properties are tenanted. So who's going to buy them? Well, it's probably going to be another buy-to-let investor, right? So once sold, the letting agent will probably lose all 15 properties. Who says that new investor or new investors will go back to them? Why would they? That could be 15 properties slipping away from them like that. The consequences are so significant. Think the lost management fees, the potential renewal fees, the ripple effect that has on the agent's overall revenue stream. And it's not just about that immediate loss. There can be far-reaching financial implications that could really reshape the landscape for that agent. You know, that could be 10% of their revenue on a monthly basis. That could be a staff member that they've just lost. But here's where you, the savvy investor, the savvy problem solver, could make a difference. You want to put yourself in a position to be able to help. Could you offer assistance to the letting agent? Maybe you could help facilitate the sale of these properties. Maybe you could buy them yourself. Maybe you could source or package them onto other people and keep some yourself. whilst mandating that letting agent to keep the lettings for 12 months. That basically means you guarantee they're let to that agent for another 12 months. You might even go a step further and you might discuss the possibility of referral fees for their cooperation. It's a true win-win solution. It's going to hugely strengthen your partnership. It creates an existing revenue stream for the letting agent, and you're winning because you're getting great off-market opportunities. What a situation to be in. So leveraging their relationships with letting agents is going to be an awesome strategy for you. Property investors who can be strategic, who can identify shared goals and values and offer assistance to these let-only agents is going to be so powerful. That collaborative approach really contributes to mutually beneficial relationships and fosters a really great relationship moving forwards. Lastly, I want you to think about auctions, which can be a hugely valuable source of leads, but be careful. You really need to know what you're doing when you're getting into auctions. Remember, they're not always, but very often, properties are in auction for a reason. Could be a reason you can provide a solution to, but I want you to be careful. Make sure you've got the money first. Make sure you've read the legal pack. But overall, it's crucial that you broaden the sources of leads that are coming into the pot. But I've seen this a million times in business and property. If you rely on only one source of leads and for whatever reason it becomes unavailable, let's say, for instance, your trusted estate agent relocates, they move abroad, they retire. What are you going to do? You find yourself in a real challenging situation. In essence, it's vital you adopt this diversified approach to lead generation. We want to be exploring various channels. Online marketing, we spoke about Facebook ads, other direct-to-vendor methods, leaflets, letters. You want to engage with estate agents, partner with your letting agents. These integrated strategies really highlight the significance, and I can't say this enough, about building relationships. It's so important that human-to-human interaction, the building of the relationships, really underscores the importance of strategic collaborations, which are going to unveil so many valuable opportunities for you. Due diligence. The first part of our due diligence section, I always struggle to say that, I'm just going to say diligence, is location. So we want to focus on a crucial aspect of identifying target markets. So when it comes to BRR investing, finding the right property is not just about luck, it's about strategy. And that really starts with identifying your target market. So let's break it down. First on the list is researching demographics. We want to understand the people in that area. It's really important for you to be able to make informed decisions. So explore population demographics, age groups, income levels, types of employment. It's going to provide you real insights into potential tenant or buyer market if you go down that route. You want to imagine this as your canvas. The more you know about the people living in the area, the better you can tailor the investment to meet their needs. That is your outcome, remember? It's not about you, it's about the end user. Also look at property heat maps. Prime location have some great ones, for example. You want to think of these as your treasure maps for identifying prime BRR areas quickly. They're going to help you identify areas with potential. So you can visualize property values, showing you where hidden gems might be around the UK. You want to check out local infrastructure, local amenities. These are the arteries that really breathe life into the location. So we're talking proximity to schools. There's a direct correlation between Ofsted ratings of schools and actual increase in property value, because people want to live there, of course. But also hospitals, public transport. Are there any future developments that could significantly impact on property values, both positive or negative? So when we zoom into the area, notice how access to schools and other amenities can make it more appealing for potential tenants or buyers. So these are the fundamental steps in identifying your target market. But why is it important? Well, because understanding that market sets the stage for the next crucial step, which is property selection. So as you identify the target markets, keep these factors in mind, and it's going to really help guide your success in your BRR strategy. It's about understanding that landscape where we're going to plant them seeds of the investment. So we're going to move on to exploring more criteria now. when we want to select the right properties within them target markets. And again, if you found this useful and valuable so far, make sure you hit that like button, you subscribe for more valuable insights. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below as well. Make sure you keep them nice, by the way. So next is criteria. This is a critical aspect of property selection, the criteria. This is where the rubber meets the road in this BRR journey. So when it comes to BRR investing, finding that right property is really a strategic game. It's not just about location. It's about aligning with your investment goals to make informed decisions. Let's break down essential criteria for property selections. So first and foremost, if you've not done this already, define your investment goals. Are you looking for short-term gains through quick flips? Or are you in it for the long haul with rental income? Your investment goals, again, are going to really shape the types of properties that we should be considering. We want to find this sweet spot that maximizes return while minimizes risk. That is key. We're talking about ideal investment range. We're talking about optimizing return on capital employed, but also considering future proofing. And before we delve deeper, I just want to clarify what return on capital employed, ROCE, is and why it matters. So ROCE is a net figure. It's representing the net rent after all costs. You then divide that by how much of your actual cash you have invested in that property, and then to make it a percentage, you multiply it by 100. So let's give an example. Let's say your net rent, and what I mean by that is your overall rent that you get from the property minus mortgage, maintenance, management costs. Let's say on a yearly basis, after all costs, the money in your pocket from the property is £2,000. Let's say you do a BRR, you refinance and you leave £10,000 of your own money in that property. So you've got £2,000 net income, you've got £10,000 of your own money, your own cash in that property. So what we do is we do 2,000 divided by 10,000. Then to get a percentage, we times it by 100. Let me know in the comments if you've got it. It's 20%, you got it right. 20% would be return on capital employed in that instance. So when we're targeting properties, especially in the current market conditions, the sweet spot really lies within that range up to about £150,000, give or take. Now, keep in mind that this strategy can still work with the higher values, but around that 150,000 mark and less is going to be our sweet spot with single lets due to what we call mortgage stress testing. Now, the primary goal for us, remember this and write it down, minimize cash left in, maximize return on capital employed. All right, I want to just go through that calculation again so it's absolutely clear, it's imprinted in your brain. So imagine, write this down, after all deductions, management, maintenance, mortgage, you're left with £2,000 in your pocket for the year. Now, through the BRR strategy, you've refurbed, you've refinanced, you've left £10,000 in the project. So the ROCE calculation would be 2,000, the net rent, divided by the money you've left in, £10,000, times 100, giving us a solid 20% return. That's how we measure the effectiveness of our investment. Now, a question I always get is, well, what should you target? What should be the target? Well, if we had this conversation a couple of years ago, we'd be aiming for 15, 20 to 20% return on capital employed post-refinance. However, with the current interest rates, we're looking at more maybe 10 to 15% range. But, and this is a crucial but, we're thinking long term. If in doubt, zoom out. Interest rates fluctuate, they're probably going to come down. I don't have a crystal ball, right? I'm not Mystic Meg, but they're more than likely to come down. And we'll be aiming for 15, 20%, maybe even higher in the future. But right now, our recommendation is we don't want to be leaving any more than £15,000 in a deal per £100,000 of property value. The next thing I want to cover is just stress testing for the mortgages. Now, before we wrap up this section, we've mentioned stress tests before. It's really, really important. This is ensuring that you qualify for a 75% loan to value or LTV when refinancing. So without thinking about stress testing, you risk not reaching the 75% loan to value. And that can significantly impact on your returns. It's not really the video to be talking about it now, but make sure you check it out. If you don't meet the stress tests, you might end up only getting 60, 50% lending, which will obviously massively impact the money you've left in that property deal and your return on capital employed. Next is understanding the local regulations. This is really important. Different areas have different zoning laws and regulations that can impact on your investment. Again, not typically relevant to BRR single lets, but is the property in Article 4, for example? If you were doing a buy, refurb, refinance into a HMO, very, very relevant. So you need to know these things. Finally, I want you to consider the tenant ratio in the area. Understand the balance between private and DSS tenants. A well-balanced ratio contributes to a stable, thriving rental market, but also an open market from a lending perspective. If you have too many council-owned properties in an area, that may impact on your lending, for example. So you need to know these things. So specific to the property, the condition is obviously very important. We want something we can add value to, via renovation, which we're going to talk about later. And we're going to conduct a step-by-step thorough assessment to do that. This step is almost like your property health checkup. Understand what needs attention. Understand what can be enhanced. Understand what solutions you can provide to problems. So I want you to remember that each little piece of criteria serves as a piece of the puzzle in your BRR strategy. By aligning your initial investment goals, whilst navigating local regulations, being able to assess property condition, but also considering budget, area, employment, schools, tenant ratios, you're going to pave the way for a successful BRR project. Now, analysis or due diligence is the cornerstone of your informed decision making. It's your detective work, your Inspector Gadget, right? And again, it's an exhaustive exploration of every detail about the property before you commit to it. The aim is you want to minimize surprises. I love surprises, but not in this respect. I don't like surprises from properties, okay? Maybe at Christmas, but that's about it. But you want to ensure that each step of your investment is grounded in comprehensive research. And one thing I want you to write down right now is figures, not feelings. Figures, not feelings. It's so easy to fall in the trap of being emotional about a deal when really we want to remain as objective as possible. Remember, you're not going to live there. This is an investment. This is a commercial decision. And this is a crucial bit of advice, okay, in this phase. And please write this down. Prioritize your figures over your feelings. Really important. Speaking specifically from experience, it's so easy to get caught up in the emotional aspect of the deal. But remember, be objective as possible. This property is not your future home. It's a strategic investment. It's about the numbers, the potential return on investment, the financial viability of the deal. So by keeping your emotions in check, way easier said than done, by the way, and focusing on the cold, hard facts and figures, you position yourself to make much better investment choices that align with your overall financial goals. So we want to approach this with a clear commercial mindset. Every decision contributes to this success. And before we start, I'll let you into a little secret that most people struggle with. And when I speak to my mentees, two of the main areas they struggle with BRRs is, number one, gaining a realistic end value of the property once the refurb has been completed. And number two, gaining an accurate figure for pricing up a refurb. So what happens is invariably is the refurb goes over in time and cost, and then the valuation maybe comes in less than what they're expecting. Oh no! We're going to be talking about these today to make sure you don't make the same mistakes. Now, step one is property valuation. We want to be scrutinizing this potential deal. Achieving an understanding of the property's end value is paramount. We're not merely concerned with the purchase price, we're looking at the overall potential return of the investment itself. So we're going to utilize renowned platforms, Rightmove, Zoopla. You might even consider leveraging paid for programs such as Property Data for in-depth analysis. The quest is to identify comparable sold properties, ideally within a quarter-mile radius, that are sold within the last 6 months. Now, that is a critical time frame because, as you may well know, the market is changing so quickly and they need to be like for like. We typically wouldn't compare a 2-bed terrace with a 3-bed terrace or a 3-bed terrace with a flat, for example. You want to compare oranges with oranges, not apples with oranges. More than likely, finding an exact match is going to prove challenging. You know, the odd time you might get a property bang next door that's like for like, done up to the nines. It's the perfect comparable. Doesn't happen very often. Now, in this instance, if you are struggling, first thing is I would extend the search to maybe half a mile radius. And I would do that before considering the longer time frame. Because the market is so dynamic, it changes so much, the time frame is more important than maybe spreading the distance slightly. The next thing you want to do when you're analysing this and looking for that end figure, that end valuation, you want to engage with local experts, estate agents. They're going to provide you valuable insight. So ask their opinion. Ask their opinion on what they think. What would this property sell for? Also explore properties, again, online that are sold subject to contract or STC, or maybe they're currently for sale. Again, this is not an exact science, right? But it gives you more information for the puzzle. For example, if a property is for sale for £150,000, but it's not been sold for 6 months, well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know it's probably not worth £150,000, right? So all these bits of information, you're like a detective, piecing this information together. Lastly, what you can do, which can be really powerful, is you can compare non-like for like by using a pound per square foot analysis. That can be a hugely valuable tool in your arsenal. So you can look at averages across the board and then apply it to your property. Again, not an exact science, but it can help. But overall, and please write this down, we want to aim for at least 3 comparables. Again, it's about piecing this together for a comprehensive overview. It's rare that you get one bang next door. Okay, so you have to do your diligence, you have to do your research with this. Now, you may have seen AVMs online, or what we call automated valuation models. You might see these on Zoopla. Property Data has one as well, where a computer calculates the end value for you. Please take these with a pinch of salt. They can be a great start to your diligence, but don't take them as gospel. The amount of times that I've seen a 2-bed terrace compared to a 3-bed flat in these automated models is crazy. And what it does is it just throws your numbers way off. So just a word of warning with them, use them as a starting position, but don't use them and don't be lazy. They're not the entirety of your diligence process. Step 2 is evaluating the rental potential. So again, platforms like OpenRent, Rightmove are great at providing insights into rental comparables for properties. So you want to understand the prospective rent in view of the property's income generating capacity. So you're going to deep dive into researching the local rental market. What's the demand like? Also, consider competitor property features. That might influence your rental pricing as well. Has someone done something else that's amazing with a property that maybe you could replicate as well? Pick up the phone, call local letting agents to get a feel for number 1, demand, but number 2, what rent they would look for. Also, you can ask them what features are really possible right now with the end user. What types of properties are flying off the shelves at the moment? And again, remember, you're not living there. So it's important that you're creating a product fit for the end user. So similar to step 1, you want to be aiming for at least 3 comparables to ensure robust analysis that captures the entirety of the rental landscape comprehensively. Step 3, refurbishment costs. Equally pivotal in the examination of your diligence is the refurb costs. You want to break this down into the granular details, materials, labour, permits, unforeseen contingencies. An accurate estimation of the cost is going to be fundamental, not only for your budgeting, but also for effective project management and coordination moving forwards. And that's really going to align your financial projections with the reality of the refurbishment process, ensuring that every aspect is accounted for. Now on with the end value, the rental potential and the refurb cost, the next step is to plug these into your awesome deal analyzer and start reverse engineering the outcome. The next step is reverse engineering. So the reverse engineering process involves working backwards from the end to calculate the maximum amount you can pay for this property while still achieving your desired outcomes. Now, whether your focus is return on capital employed, money left in the deal, or other financial metrics, this process will empower you to set clear financial parameters for what you can pay for this property. So to bring these concepts to life, I want to embark on a real world example, walk through the diligence step by step. And this practical scenario hopefully illuminates the intricacies of evaluating a property and strategically planning this project. So stay with me while we go through this and demonstrate through practical application of due diligence in a highly dynamic, moving property market. A Buy Refurb Refinance showcase. So here's an example from not too long ago, a real life snapshot of turning a property into a beautiful little palace for a young family and a thriving investment. This is a property that's, to be honest, it's seen better days, right? It's a real diamond in the rough. The vendor was unable to tackle the necessary renovation that was required. They decided they wanted to leave. Now our entry point, a purchase price of £80,000. Now for a deal like this, we were putting down a £20,000 deposit, i.e. 25% of the purchase price. Stamp duty, land tax, SDLT, legal fees, survey, chip in another £3,400. If you then factor in your finance cost for the initial 6 months at £3,000 and a refurb cost of £16,000. And we tally it all up, our total investment stands at just over £42,000, £42,400 to be exact. So all in, our costs hit £102,400. Now let's see how this transforms. Fast forward, the property's been renovated, it's been turned into a beautiful palace for a young family, it's been refinanced. It's time to unlock its true value. So our all-in costs, just as a reminder, including the purchase, the refurbishment, and associated expenses, are at just over £102,000. As we step into the world of refinancing, we appraised the property initially at having an end value of around £125,000, which was spot on, by the way. Little pat on the back for me. But here's where it gets exciting. Through refinancing, we were taking cash out of £93,750. So if you take that away from the total money in, it leaves us with only £5,672 of our own money in the house. Who watching this wants a house for just over £5,000? Of course you do, absolutely. Now the gross rent came in at £625 per calendar month. So once we account for mortgage, management, maintenance, we're looking at a net rent of just over £120 a month or £1,444.50 annually. So what we're going to do is work out the return on capital employed. So we look at that 1,444.50 divided by the money that we left in, which is the just over £5,600. If you can do quick maths, it leaves us with a 25.4% return on capital employed, or ROCE. Now, not only that, we've added £25,600 in value, enhancing our equity. This is the power of BRR. So effectively, we bought a house for just over £5,600. This is the power of the BRR model, and I hope you're starting to see how exciting this is right now. So let's move on to the next section of our teaching, which is the financing of the BRR. How are you going to fund it? And I'm really excited to guide you through this intricate world. Now, the financing is really the heartbeat of a successful investment, and I want to break it down into three main methods. Our first method is buying with cash. Now note, it doesn't need to be your cash. But cash is such a powerful concept in property investment because it introduces speed and flexibility into your financial toolkit. So by using your own funds or readily available cash, you gain a competitive advantage with several benefits. And namely, the benefits are: number one, speed. Number two, you're bypassing any potential surveyor recommendations. Number three, you could indemnify your searches, meaning a quicker process. And number four, maybe the main one, is huge negotiation power. Now, first and foremost, speed is the essence of cash transactions. Without the need for lengthy approval processes, mortgage underwriting, you can put yourself in a position to seize opportunities quickly, which gains you a huge advantage in such a dynamic market. Additionally, having this cash at your disposal allows you to bypass issues with surveyors. No waiting for surveyors' reports, no complications, just a streamlined-ish path to property acquisition. That autonomy extends further into maybe indemnifying searches, again saving time, potentially mitigating unforeseen issues. And as I said, I think one of the most significant advantages is the negotiation power that comes with cash transactions. Sellers often appreciate just the simplicity and the speed of cash deals. It gives you such an upper hand in the negotiation. So it can be an incredibly strategic move that can really open doors for you for favorable terms and quick deals. So as you consider your finance options, remember, cash is not just currency, it's the catalyst for speed, flexibility, and ultimately negotiation. Now, as I said, it doesn't need to be your cash. This is a game changer. You could use what we call OPM, or other people's money. That's a concept that can change the investment game for you. Instead of relying solely on your own funds, you can leverage resources from external sources, private individuals. The benefits are huge. Reduced personal risk for you, scalability, potentially tapping into others' expertise, whilst maximizing returns, minimizing risk. Who wouldn't want that? Reduced personal risk means you're not putting all your capital on the line. The scalability of it allows you to grow your portfolio beyond what your own funds would permit. And obviously leveraging expertise of others allows you to navigate the journey with somebody else. Financing option number two is bridging finance. Now, the second method, bridging finance, can be a great tool for short-term financing needs, but you want to understand the fundamentals. Bridging loans are short-term loans. They're designed to cover immediate financing needs. They're not really meant for long-term commitments. We're talking 6, 12-month usage. Now, understanding the difference of that can be really, really important because they can be massively valuable when it comes to property acquisition and refurbishment, as it can be done typically, not always, a lot quicker than mortgage lending. I repeat, can be done, not always. And bridging lenders are normally more flexible. They're more open to things that maybe traditional lenders wouldn't be. So for example, to obtain a mortgage on a property, it has to be what we call habitable. With bridging, they're not really concerned. They don't mind about that sort of stuff. Now, there are several different bridging loans. The main thing here is to speak to a good broker to understand your options before you buy the property. Really important, write that down, before you buy the property. But there's two quite commonly used bridging products that I briefly want to touch on with you. Number one is a straight bridging loan, which can serve the purpose of bridging that financial gap between your deposit and the property purchase. Again, this can be a strategic move to move more quickly in a fast-paced market. The second is a bridge to let product. This is quite an innovative approach where a bridging loan is converted into a longer term mortgage, which often offers stability after an initial acquisition. Now, each type has its pros and cons, and understanding them is key for you to make informed decisions. Now, with this product, the bridge to let product, you will know the end value before you even do the refurb. So obviously it gives you a massive amount of certainty. You'll need to provide all of the proposed refurb works, the specification, the schedule of works, etc., before you even start. You have to provide them to the lender to obtain this. So many BRR investors opt for bridging finance to execute this strategy because typically, not always, it allows you to buy more quickly with less of your own money, which can obviously help you get a better price. Now, as discussed, bridging loans often allow you to buy properties that wouldn't be eligible for a mortgage due to their condition. So a property without a kitchen or a bathroom, you might struggle to get a mortgage on it. This can be a huge advantage because it rules that property out for most owner-occupiers, which allows greater negotiation for you. Now, one thing people often forget or don't understand are the fees for bridging finance. They can seem rather high. You're going to have third-party solicitor fees, arrangement fees, the interest on the debt. You can then either pay all of these costs up front, you could service it monthly, or you could have it rolled up at the end. I just want you to bear this in mind. It's just another cost of entry. It could be like refurb cost. But bridging loans can still be an excellent opportunity to use debt because you could do a cosmetic refurb. Maybe you refurb the kitchen, the bathroom during the project, and then you put a mortgage on the property once the work is all done. But let's come to refinance later on. The final method that we're going to be talking about is mortgage financing. Now, this is the most common way people normally envisage buying a property. Now, typically, when attempting to do a BRR project, a mortgage is not the right product to be used, as mortgages are typically geared towards long-term lending. However, there is a way. As we discuss their use, it's really important to be mindful that this approach may not align with certain lenders' preferences, and it could potentially impact on your future lending opportunities. So it's really, really important in this stage to be open and honest about your intentions, both with the property, both with your broker and with the lender. Bear in mind the market conditions, the interest rates, your relationships with the broker and your lender are going to play pivotal roles in navigating this strategy effectively. Now, while mortgages offer an avenue for immediate scaling, it's crucial to acknowledge, as I said, the long-term potential consequences. Employing mortgages extensively for BRR may impact on your overall lending profile. Okay? Lenders, particularly those with a preference for traditional lending, may raise their eyebrows a little bit. This consideration is really important as it really underlines the importance of balancing your short-term gains with ultimately your long-term goals. But strategically incorporating mortgages into your initial purchasing phase of a BRR needs foresight of how it aligns to broader objectives. In summary, the strategic use of mortgages in scaling your BRR portfolio, it needs a nuanced understanding of the market. It can be done, but you need to understand the market interest rates, the delicate dance with the lenders. It can be a powerful tool, but it requires adaptability, understanding of potential consequences. Remember, the success lies in the intersection of strategy, market awareness, your relationship management. Now, a key point that we want to touch on is post-refurbishment financing. This is where it gets exciting. After successfully completing the refurb phase, refinancing is the final stage. This step involves reassessing the new value of the property, taking into account, hopefully, an increased value as the result of your fantastic renovations. The goal is obviously to secure favourable terms with a new mortgage that reflects the enhanced worth of your property. Now, navigating this process will require a keen understanding of the market, property valuations and lender criteria. First up, some guidance on the timeline. Let's address the elephant in the room. Let's call it the 6-month rule that you might have heard of. Maybe it's more guidance. The 6-month rule or guidance that often accompanies refinancing. Now, this rule was implemented to curb unethical practices, preventing same-day refinances, selling on day one, Whilst it's not a rule as such, not many lenders bypass the rule. So it's important to understand that if you want the pick of all the lenders, you're going to need to wait until 6 months of ownership. You can do it before, but you just need to know that you're going to have less lenders available. Now, if you're using cash or bridging, you can simply refinance onto a traditional mortgage. But if you purchase with a mortgage, the concept of what we call a further advance in property investment is key that you understand. And this involves tapping into the accrued equity in the property to obtain the additional funds from an existing mortgage provider. So this is a really strategic financial move that can be a game changer in expanding your property portfolio without the need to shift or get a new lender. So let's delve a little bit deeper into that. So the primary mechanism behind further advances lies in leveraging the equity that you built in your property through the refurb. So equity, and you want to write this down, is the difference between the property's market value and the outstanding mortgage balance. So for example, if the property value is £100,000 and your mortgage, i.e. your debt on that property is £80,000, you have £20,000 of equity. You're just minusing the debt off the value. You've got £20,000 in equity. So by looking at further advances, you're essentially converting a portion of that equity into usable funds. So it enables you to capitalize on the increased value of the property without the complexities of securing new lenders. Now, another top tip for you, create a refinance pack. So you want to create a refinance pack. This is the opportunity for you to prove and flaunt this incredible transformation you've brought to the property. You've created a beautiful palace for the community. But a word of caution, not all surveyors appreciate the in-the-face shoving a pack in their face because they think, I'll do my job, leave me to do it, right? Instead, what I would do, maybe leave it in the car. Subtly mention you've created a pack, gauge their interest. It's not just about showcasing the beautiful palace you've created, though. It serves as a handy reminder for the surveyor when they're completing their notes later on in the office, they're tired after a full day of service. It gives them a reminder. So to conclude on this section, it's evident that a very important component when successfully executing the BRR technique is the financials. Whether that be cash and other people's money, joint ventures, bridging finance, or mortgage finance, you now provide a versatile toolkit to leverage in your property business. Refurbishment and adding value to your property. So the first stage in refurbishment and adding value is the planning of the refurb. I really want to delve into the intricacies of planning your refurb because truth be told, the lion's share of the work, probably 80%, happens right here in the planning stage. So many people skip it and want to get in the trenches. If you do it, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to cost yourself time and money. So let's break down each step and ensure that we don't leave any stones unturned. So first things first, the visuals. Now, whether you're using the online portals or maybe you're dealing direct to vendor, the first task is to review the property photos. If you're lucky enough to get your hands on a floor plan, great. If not, we need to create some by ourselves. Use some great tools like a Bluetooth laser measurer and an app called Magic Plan. Unbelievable. Other apps are available, by the way. But now you've got your images in your floor plan, I want you to start plotting out the crucial elements on it. Things I want you to think about and start plotting on the floor plan are, where's the boiler? Where are the radiators, the sockets, the switches, the fuse board, the windows? Which direction do the doors open? And here's a pro tip for you. Do not blindly trust the square footage figures, especially if they're handed over by an estate agent. No offense, guys, but external walls might be thicker than a Harry Potter novel. Internal walls can be anywhere from 20 to 30 centimeters. And let's not forget the exterior. This is the step most people miss. Don't be most people. This will cost you, bite you in the bum. Count the windows, check the chimneys, inspect the fences. Is there any pointing work needed? And what about the gutters? Is it like the Amazon rainforest in there? You need to know this stuff. Take note of sheds, garages, any outbuildings. Now that might seem a lot, but remember, a significant portion of your time and effort should be dedicated to this homework before you even step in the property. And people always say, well, why, Sam? Why am I looking at the external so much? Well, because arguably it's the most expensive area. And number two is because it lays the foundations for estimating your refurb costs. It allows you to crunch the numbers more accurately and determine your offer price more effectively. Now, next we move on to the viewing itself. A word of advice: take your time, especially if you're watching this and you're relatively new to the game. A single 20-minute viewing is not enough, in my opinion, to make a decision on these things. You need to ask for longer, or maybe book back-to-back viewing slots. After all, you wouldn't drop 100 grand on a car after a 20-minute look, would you? Well, maybe you would. I wouldn't, for example. I wouldn't do that. But when you're on your viewing, I want you to be inquisitive. Ask questions. Think about, what is my builder going to ask me? Where's the soil stack? Where's the radiators? Where's the electric boards? Were changes signed off by building control? Where's the services, the boiler? Make sure you've got all the necessary certificates for the electrics. How old is the boiler? Was it serviced recently? When was the roof last done? Can I take a peek in the loft? And don't forget to inquire about warranties. Look at potential rear access issues if you need to use scaffolding, for example. And in the midst of all this questioning, I want you to take great notes. You can use a clipboard and paper if you want to. I use an iPad. I then take 4 images of every room and capture a video of me talking over it. Trust me, your future self will thank you for it. And one big tip, another big tip for you, write this down. If you're doing multiple viewings in a day and you take loads of photos like I do, make sure the first photo of every property is of the front door or the front of the house. You can then decipher which images are for which property. I'm laughing because I made this mistake so many times. If you don't do that, you're just going to have hundreds of images of inside houses and you can't remember which property they're from. And it's very, very annoying and very time consuming. So be less like me and do the things I'm telling you right now. So remember, the viewing is the final 20%. It's serving to verify your initial thoughts and confirm the refurbishment needs of the property. So now we're going to talk about pricing up the refurb. Again, an incredibly important component because it's a really key variable that you can control. Obviously, there's certain things external, what you can't control, but many things you can. If you think about the purchase price of the property, that's negotiable to a point, but you look at stamp duty, legals, maybe a sourcing or packaging fee, that's relatively fixed. The two big variables in your refurb projects is number one, the cost of the refurb, and number two, the length of time that will take. So things we need to think about are the budget, the estimate, and the quote. Preceding that is your specification. So you've got to have a specification, or a spec as we call it, which is the standard that you're trying to achieve in the property in terms of brands you want to use for the refurb, models, sizes, colours. It's really important that you have that because without a spec, that quote is merely an estimate and it leaves so much open to go wrong. You've not given a spec in which you want, therefore, the tradesperson can't set a quote, it's just an estimate. So it's really important, it's absolutely paramount. So for me, what you've got to do is work out what figures work on that property. You're finding out what the end value is once the property work's been done. You then need to work out what you can pay for the property, and the budget is the difference in the middle. So you work out your budget, that's the starting position. Okay, to make sure the end figure, the outcome, whether that be money left in, return on capital employed, whatever you're aiming for, meets the target. Whatever's left is the budget. Now, here's the challenge for you, which is exciting, to deliver that project within the budget. So for example, let's say you have a budget of £15,000. It's your job to get everything you need done within the budget. Now, it might cost 15 grand. It might cost 12 grand. That's on you to negotiate and work out the most effective, efficient way you can do that refurb. Other things you want to consider in this phase within the build process is, do you need to involve building control? That comes at a cost. Do you need planning permission? Do you need a structural engineer potentially removing weight-bearing walls? Do you need a skip permit because skips are on the street, for example? Do you need a highways permit? Do you need to submit architectural designs? What surveys do you need? Do you need a structural survey? Do you need a home buyer survey? Do you need a damp survey? Do you need to consider design fees of maybe the kitchen, or maybe a change or reconfiguration of layout? These are all fees that people tend to miss, and you want to make sure they're within your budget and on your spreadsheet as well. So when you're viewing the property, you need to start looking at building what we call a bill of quantities, which is essentially a list of items line by line of what you're going to need within that property. Okay, it's very high level, but you don't want to leave anything to chance within this specification, because if the trades boys or girls install a door that you didn't want and it's not on the spec, that's on you. Don't leave anything to chance, because when they're looking at the spec and they install a door that you don't want, whether that be a fire door, non-fire door, style of door, if they get it wrong, it's on you. Now I want you to write this down. All of your successes in life are your fault, so are your failures. Take responsibility for things. You didn't write it in the specification as detailed as you should. Additionally, when doing your bill of quantities, it's starting you to get prices. It's such a fantastic reference point in the future because, again, prices are going to vary across the UK. They're going to vary on the size of the property, the location geographically in the UK, but also trade to trade. So it's great that you start to get a reference point for a 2-bed terrace, a 3-bed, a 3-bed semi-detached, or a 1-bed flat within your area. And that starts then to allow your job to get a lot easier when you're pricing up projects in the future. So that then forms the basis of your bill of quantities. So from there, you need to understand, well, how much do things cost? And this is one of the questions I get all the time. How much does the kitchen cost? How much does a bathroom cost? Well, maybe surprisingly, it's quite difficult to answer that question because there's such huge variances, not only in the actual product that you're using, right? There's such different levels of kitchen from £2,000 to 20, 30, 40, 60,000 pounds, but also it's the geographical location. It's the trades themselves, there's huge variance, but also the experience of that person. So if we were face to face now and there was a few of us and I said, how much does a kitchen cost? Then you're going to ask, well, how big is the kitchen? What spec is the kitchen? How quickly are we getting this kitchen fitted? Are we having integrated appliances? There's so many variables that maybe we wouldn't think of, and people would just start shouting out random figures. So it's really important that you find out how much it costs in your area. And how do you do that? Well, this is one of the hardest things, or what people perceive to be one of the hardest things, is picking up the phone. Picking up the phone to a tradesperson. It's a great task for you to do to overcome fear that you might have, but also to start building that specification list and the associated costs that come with it. And it's really important when you're having conversations with tradespeople that you think, well, what is the trade going to ask me? So they're going to ask you, well, how big is the property? What's the specification, etc., etc. And as soon as you start using these more lingo terms, they know straight away you know what you're talking about. So it's really important that when you ring them, you think, what would they ask me? The next component, and arguably one of the most important components with refurbs, is finding great, reliable tradespeople. It is mission critical to your success, and it really demands careful consideration. So I want to expand on that. Where do you find great tradespeople? You want to write these down, I'll list them off. Firstly, online recommendations and social media. Now, when it comes to online and social media recommendations, they're great, but don't take this as gospel. I get tagged weekly in posts and on social media regarding our hands-free property portfolio building service in Yorkshire. A lot of the time by previous clients, but not always. Sometimes it's by people who've never used us. How do they know we're any good? Obviously we're the best, right? But how do they know that? How do they know we're any good? So it's important that you approach these recommendations with a discerning eye. I want you to think of it as the first chapter in your diligence process. It's not the entire story. These virtual endorsements, whether from previous clients or not, serve as a good starting position for your investigation. Next, we've got check a trade. It's a go-to place for many investors and non-investors. And tradespeople pay a monthly fee to be listed on the site. And it's those that receive high ratings, but not only high ratings, it's the regularity of them high ratings. Those are the ones that maintain prime spot on page one. Again, consider this is just the beginning of your assessment and diligence process. The next is another two great websites, My Builder and Rated People. So these offered quite structured approaches to connecting with tradespeople. And on Rated People and My Builder, you post your job needs, and then tradespeople can then purchase or offer on that for around £30 per job. So they pay that money to directly engage with you. So it's really important with this that you put as much detail as possible or no one will bid for your work. Don't underestimate the power of traditional methods. Scouring newspapers, leveraging word of mouth recommendations can still yield really valuable leads in identifying trustworthy tradespeople. Now, one thing that people don't often think about is letting agents. They can be an excellent resource for you, particularly for more handyman type services. Whilst they might not provide explicit recommendations, their ears are firmly pinned to the floor of the local scene. So they'll certainly be able to steer you away from maybe the more unreliable options. The next place is builders merchants. Take a stroll through the parking lot, visit the customer desk, inquire about the familiar faces that frequent the store. Whose van's always in the car park? Who's consistently buying materials? Those individuals consistently buying materials are likely doing something right, earning their keep in the eyes of the merchants. Now, it's crucial to stress that these methods serve as a preliminary step in identifying potential tradespeople for your refurb needs. I strongly recommend initiating this process well in advance before the actual need arises. Ideally, you're doing this during the legal process. However, let's not forget, this task is just the tip of the iceberg. Once you've compiled a list of potential tradespeople, the next phase involves a meticulous vetting process. And diligence is not a one-time event, it's a continuous quality process. And it all begins with finding the right people for your property refurbs. Now, it's important to briefly touch on the CDM regulations that stand for the Construction Design and Management Regulations of 2015. Now, while we won't go into extensive detail of this, it's a comprehensive subject on its own. It's crucial that anybody overseeing refurbs have an understanding of this. So you need to understand that in the CDM regulations, a client is defined as someone for whom a construction project is carried out. Specifically, a commercial client is an organization or individual for whom the construction project is undertaken in connection with a business. Now, if you're overseeing a project or managing it on behalf of somebody else, this may be you. Now, even if you're not actively supervising the work, you wield significant influence over how the work is carried out. So you need to understand your role in the context of CDM. Really important to ensure a safe, compliant construction project. Now, my advice is check out the Health and Safety Executive website, the HSE. It's a very valuable and free resource that you can utilize as your starting point. Now, let me walk you through another investment, another BRR. This wasn't too long ago. We identified this property direct to vendor in need of attention. We secured it at a purchase price of just under £99,000, 98,750 to be exact. So the initial investment was a deposit of 25%, meaning £24,687.50. I worked that out before, by the way, that wasn't off the top of my head. And additional costs such as stamp duty, legal fees, surveys, totals just under £3,000. Now, to navigate the first 6 months, we accounted for finance costs of just under £4,000, coupled with a refurb budget of £20,000. That brought our total investment to a precise £48,650,000. Let's see how it unfolded. So the property has not only undergone a transformation, but it's evolved into an awesome investment, with the all-in costs reaching just over £122,000. Our approach to the refurb and the refinancing evaluated our property value, our thorough due diligence, an approach to the refurb estimated a property end valuation of £150,000, which we were spot on again. I'll tap on the back, Sam. The outcome, cash out of £112,500, leaving just over £10,000 in the deal. Now, the great thing was this property was rented within 24 hours of it hitting the market. It shows the importance of knowing your local area. And the rentees were a young family near a local school, incredible to see. And it obtains a gross rent of £800 per calendar month. So once you factor in mortgage, management, maintenance, we're left with a decent rent of just under £180 a month or £2,127 annually. Now, if we apply our return on capital employed equation, we do the net rent divided by the money left in times 100, we're left with a solid 20.7% return on capital employed. The cherry on top is added value of over £27,000 in equity. This case study again just showcases the power of the BRR model to enable your funds to go way further than standard purchases and really allow you to grow and scale your portfolio much more quickly. And as we wrap up our journey into the world of BRR investing, I've got 3 final tips for you that can make all the difference in your success. So grab your notepads, grab your iPads and write these down. Tip number 1, when refurbing a property, consider holding costs. So when diving into refurbishment projects, often people overlook the holding costs. These include council tax, insurance, utilities and more. So to be safe, it's wise to allow for at least 6 months of holding costs. And this consideration can really prevent unexpected surprises. Remember, I don't like surprises in property. It can prevent these and it can ensure that your budget aligns with the reality of property ownership. Number 2 is include a refurb contingency. Now, I'm always conflicted in my mind with this, but I want you to expect the unexpected, especially when it comes to budget and timelines. You will run over, expect it, plan for it. You will spend more, expect it, plan for it. Having a refurb contingency is important, providing you a financial cushion for those moments when the costs and the time may surpass your initial estimates. Now, whether you're just starting out or you've got experience under your belt, understanding and managing these contingencies is really important. Now, in the beginning, I would consider applying a percentage, let's say 20%, as a safety net for unforeseen circumstances. But as you gain more experience, you gain more expertise, it's time to elevate your game. You need to drop the percentage contingencies and start to identify specific items that carry inherent risks, such as the roof, drainage, floor joists. So instead of a generic contingency, assign a precise cost to each of these risk items. No more guesswork. We're talking calculated risk here. Each item should then be given a rating alongside its cost, creating a meticulous strategic approach to handling unforeseen challenges in your BRR projects. It's all about evolving from percentages to precision. Tip number 3, don't forget your gas safety certificates and your EICR. Now, compliance is key. Overlooking it can lead to unforeseen complications. Remember to include costs of a gas safety certificate and an EICR in your budget. Many investors tend to forget these crucial compliance steps, and the failure to address them can result in additional expenses and/or project delay. So I really want you to prioritize your compliance and ensure a smooth and cost-effective refurb process. And that's it. Congratulations on completing our BRR investment masterclass. From grasping the fundamentals of the BRR strategy to honing your skills in deal analysis, due diligence within the dynamic UK property market. Remember, Buy, Refurbish, Refinance allows you to expand your portfolio much faster, unlike conventional buy-to-let approaches, which require you to save multiple deposits. Again, remember, if you want to learn more about BRR, more in-depth, more hand-holding, taking you step by step through all of this and much more, just put learn in the comments and the team will reach out. Let's go and make this happen together. I believe in you. Sam signing out.